Awesome. Thanks everyone for joining. Really happy to have you guys here. Thanks for joining at the last minute as well. My name is Neeraj Chor. I'm the CEO of Bangladesh Angels. Really excited to kind of introduce the Dittofi team. Both James and Greg are on the line. So we'll go ahead and kind of do that, and we'll ask them to kind of give an overview of the platform, what we have in mind as far as this workshop, and maybe we can make this more of a Q&A. You can tell us about what you have in mind, what you want to build, what sort of questions you might have about the workshop, and we can kind of try to answer together. But James and Greg, maybe I'll give the floor to you first in terms of just introducing yourselves and the company.
For sure, yeah. Hi everyone. My name is James. I'm a co-founder of Dittofi. So Greg is our head of partnerships and business development. So we started our company April 2020, kind of with a vision in mind. We were looking at kind of the landscape of kind of, I guess, the digital world, and we realized, in a world where less than 0.5% of the people know how to write computer code, we wanted to kind of work on this problem of code literacy and help people really understand how to build software and high-powered software without necessarily needing to write out individual lines of computer code. The kind of framing of the company itself and where we fit within that space, no code obviously is quite picking up nowadays. And we kind of saw deficiencies in the existing products that were on the market for several reasons, mainly to do with the fact that kind of every no-code platform that exists today has some sort of limitation that will be within it in terms of being able to produce a certain level of customization, a certain level of scalability. And we saw that kind of frontier of no-code being, where you would hit that kind of like upper limit on those products. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to build something where we would be very much, and when you hit that kind of like upper limit on those products, we realized that, at that point you would need to go the custom development route. So we wanted to change the way that was done, and we wanted to allow people to kind of hit that frontier and then keep going way beyond their version 1, way beyond their version 2, and just keep building more high-powered software. So our platform in the no-code ecosystem is one of these systems which allows you to extend much beyond kind of basic MVP prototypes and allows you to build systems which can really be enterprise grade in quality. And we do that by making sure that at any point in time, you always have access to your source code, so you can actually see the individual lines of computer code being written, and it's all on a very high-powered tech stack, which is used by the top companies in Silicon Valley. So that's kind of, I guess, hopefully frames a little bit. I don't know, Najor, if you have any questions about that, or if anyone has any questions about that.
Yeah, I think maybe we can kind of, if it's all right, maybe we can kind of get a demo of the platform, from you, and then maybe we could ask more specific questions about the workshop and what we might be able to do together.
Sure, yeah, no problem. Can you let me share my screen?
Or my fault. Not sure why that's happening. Just let me know. Interesting.
There we go.
Let me make
sure I have it now.
You got it? Okay, great.
Yeah, there you go. So maybe I'll just kick off briefly by giving a kind of review of the stuff that's kind of been built up to now. So we have all these tabs along the top. These are a bunch of case studies that I just lined up quickly before the start of the presentation. So we've started doing work with incubators and accelerators, where basically these people who want to build apps, kind of like this group here, which is called Our Float or Float. They wanted to build a software application, so they were able to come to our platform and put this together without needing to have a developer's involvement. So this is just a small kind of example of a type of app you can build. This one is listing boat rentals. So it's got functionality like a search function at the top where you can like search for different regions within the platform. You can also go in and like see those regions displayed on maps, and then you can also go through and actually book these tours. We also had this company, Digital Deep, which has built a directory-based application on our software. So again, without needing a developer, one of the co-founders of this company was able to put this together without needing our involvement. We've also built some demo apps internally. So we built a Spotify clone where people were able to listen to music and so on within the applications. This is another example of the type of things you can build. These are all web-based applications, but they're responsive for the mobile phone as well. And then recently we've had more groups come on and build like sort of little test applications to kind of see how the platform works. So this one here you can see is like a job finder application. There's like a little note finder application that one of the agencies was building the other day. So that's on here as well. And then basically, just you can also build, as well as those kind of like more web app based things, you can also build just like standard websites. So this is the fund that invested in us, CF Squared, co-founder fund, and they rebuilt their website using our technology. It's kind of like a simple view there. We've also done like social media applications as well. So this is just one that we built during a bootcamp that we were running a few weeks ago with another incubator based in Toronto. And this was just an example of the type of app that you could build. So this was kind of like a LinkedIn, I think, clone. I don't know if all of these buttons work. It looks like they do. So yeah, it was just a little social media clone. To give some context of time and how long it takes to build these. So these guys built their app in about a week. These guys similar. This application, which we built internally ourselves, we were able to put this together in an hour. So very fast to put together the platforms. And this social media one here, this one was built in a 2-hour long session where we literally explained exactly where to put the buttons, how to hook everything together, so you can build the stuff incredibly quickly on the platform. So what I'll do then is I'll just give you a quick tour of the company like website where you can find like learning information and things like that. And then I'll dive in and just build something quickly in front of you so you can see roughly how it works. But essentially, so this is the website. So if you come dittofi.com, this gives you access to the platform. On here, we've got, since last time we spoke with you guys, we have a whole bunch of extra things that we've put into the platform. So we have an experts community now of people that know how to use our platform. So these are listed here. So these are agencies that know how to use the system, and you can go out and you can hire Dittofi experts inside these agencies, and they'll be able to build you low-cost applications, but that are incredibly high quality. But in a massively truncated period of time, so you can basically get your apps to market a lot faster. So there's groups that we're working with at the moment on that front. If you have an idea and you want to come and put it in, we have an RFP form at the bottom where you can come and you can, tell us a little bit about your application and then submit it, and that gives you kind of like one route to get your application built. Typical builds can range anywhere between, like $5,000 up to like $25,000, depending on kind of the spend. But the idea of no code is that you get a lot more for your money. So because of the amount of time it takes to build the apps is so massively reduced, you can build a lot more within a much shorter time frame, and which necessarily means that the price point is a lot lower and a lot more affordable for people. There's also the opportunity after taking the bootcamp to become a Dittofi expert yourself, and then be able to conduct your own bootcamps and things like that. And under our learning section, so we've now got a community set up here as well, which is run through Discord, where you can come and ask questions about the platform. And we've also got a whole doc section set up, which we're adding to daily. So in here, you've got the ability to learn how to build front end, back end, full stack applications. So to give kind of an example of how this works, we teach you the basics of like HTML, CSS for the front end. On the back end, we teach you things like what is data, what is an API, how do you connect to an API, how do you build a custom API inside the Dittofi platform, and then we go through and explain what each of the individual bits of functionality are under the hood. So if you wanted to create, for example, a login, bit of functionality to log in new users, You've got like authentication profiles. It explains how this all works within here as well. So there's a lot of information. But if you kind of want to get them on board, start learning how the platform works, this is like a really good entry point for it as well. And then we also have our YouTube channel where we've got more information on there. Najor, feel free to stop me at any point if you feel necessary. But if not, I'll just keep going, and the same goes for anyone else.
Yeah, and if anybody has any questions, feel free to just raise your hand, and we could kind of answer. But maybe we could this is a good kind of point to go into the boot camp itself. What is the boot camp for? What will somebody get out of it if they were to participate in it?
Yeah, for sure. So we split the bootcamp up. This is the general schedule of it. So it's split over 5 days. So day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5. We run 2-hour sessions. What we've kind of found is that you need to go, after you practice it down and learn, you need to go away and kind of like practice a little bit. So who is the bootcamp for? The bootcamp is for kind of anyone who wants to build some software application or is interested in learning about how to build software applications using a no-code platform. The Dittofi platform leverages a lot of the ideas from the traditional no-code systems. So I would say if you're able to understand how our platform works, you can also learn how other platforms work as well, because we're not kind of like massively different from everyone else in that sense. Where we kind of, so yeah, you can come into it, you can kind of like, as a non-techie or as a techie, you can get a lot out of the thing and really learn how to build systems. Where we start off, we teach you how to build a landing page to begin with. So the idea of the whole camp is that we take you from the landing page of your application, so building your actual website, all the way through to actually building your app itself during the 5 sessions. So you'd kick off, build that responsive landing page. We would explain to you in the first session how you go about actually creating that page. So adding your images to the page, how to make it responsive for mobile, how to add your content, how to build multiple pages. Your simple things like your about sections, how to set up a screen that looks like a login page where users can come and put information. How can you create forms in order to collect up new users? If you're building a medical app and you want to have people uploading data, maybe you're going to want to have a section on your page where you can allow people to upload data into your system. So we teach you that kind of like how to structure that and how to design that on the first day. After you've kind of built that landing page and that's the kind of the shop window into your system, we then go into how to build the actual app itself. So the second day is using a lot of the concepts that you learn by building your landing page about designing software to then go into actually building the front end portion of your system. So what we do is we show you on this first day here how you can start to make this all of your front end a bit more dynamic. So creating what we call workflows, how to put logic into your front end so you can display different bits of screens on certain conditions. For example, if you're logging in a user, when they log into the application, you're going to then take them to like a new screen. So how do you actually do that within the platform? That's what we teach you. So after that kind of like second day, you should understand how to build the front end of your application and how to structure it across like multiple pages, and then how to actually launch that application. But at the moment, it will still be very much front end work. Where we get into the really interesting stuff is on day 3, where we go into actually building the full stack architecture. So the full stack, this means your database backend. It means the real kind of like the real logic within your platform. So our system here, as separate from other no-code platforms, we allow you to go a lot further on your back-end development. The front-end development, no-code tools are kind of like rich, I would say, feature-wise, in terms of what they can offer on the front end. So we do everything that everyone else can already do in that space. And the applications that we generate on the front end are in the React and Redux frameworks. So they use like real high-powered like development language, I guess, best practices and so on. So you get that source code writing under the hood. On the third day, sorry, when we do the backend stuff, that's where we really distinguish ourselves, because we allow you to build a lot more powerful systems from a backend standpoint. So really kind of like Some of our competitors, they'll kind of like cap out at around 1,000, somewhere between 1,000 and 5,000 concurrent users of your application. We kind of don't have a limit in terms of the number of users that can actually be on your platform. It's kind of will scale up to be able to handle huge numbers of users. And we kind of teach you about that on the third day and how to structure your backend so it kind of makes sense. The hardest bit here is learning how to put your data structures in place. But we have technical assistants that will be able to kind of walk you through that process and explain, maybe you're building a two-sided marketplace, maybe you're building like a medical app to collect data, maybe you're building a social media platform, whatever it is, we will help you put those database structures in place. That really gives you like a really strong bedrock for your application so that you can kind of, so you can scale it up in such a way that you'll be able to extend it, add new features to it over time, and also in such a way that it's not going to kind of collapse when loads of people kind of plug into it as well. But day 3 is a really important one to get right because you need to make sure that's good. And like I said, we have technical assistance on help between the sessions. So you'll be able to come in, ask questions and make sure that, you're doing it the right way. And we'll go through and review that with you. Day 4 is kind of like a revision of what we did on day 3 because it's a lot of information to take in, but then also bringing in how we can manage things like test versus production applications in here as well. So once your app launches, you don't want to kind of be editing your production directly for your users to see. How do you manage the two things in parallel? Like what are the processes you can put around that? And then the final one here, so we've written build a login routine. This is actually more to do with setting up third-party API integrations. So this would be looking at, for example, you want your users to be able to log in using LinkedIn. So I have like somewhere at the top of my screen underneath this barrier. I'm not sure I can get to this here. But like, yeah, so for example, here, if I show you, so like adding a LinkedIn button like this to the page, if you want to have this in your application, it's all available off the shelf. You can just pull it into your platform. And then when you have your users click that, they can log in through something like LinkedIn. So this would be working with like a third-party API. So whether that is like Stripe to take payments on your platform, whether it's Twilio, so that you can send like a bunch of SMS messages out to your users, Firebase for notifications. That's kind of what we go through on the on that day there. And then the final, the final thing that we kind of I would say is that in between each of the sessions, you'll notice that we've got tasks that need to be completed. So it really does require you to put some commitment in on your side as well. It can't just be kind of us explaining and then in a vacuum, you just absorb the information. You need to take it away between sessions and actually try and use the tool, actually try and put the stuff together yourself, because that will mean that you run into problems. And when you run into problems, you can just come directly in the platform. We have a little, you can't quite see maybe down here, you have a little help section. So you can literally just come in here, type in your question, and then one of our technical assistants will be there to kind of walk you through what that problem is. So I've noticed there's been a few flashing things on the side here. I don't know if people have questions, but Najor, did you want to ask anything at this stage?
Yeah, I'll start. There's already been a few questions from people who kind of registered, so I'll just kind of go through those. So the first one, is Dittofi, or is this workshop for solo founders or teams?
It would be so. We find that we need to kind of keep it to a maximum of 10 people. The reason for that is otherwise it's difficult to kind of communicate. But teams can join and then they can work on their projects together for sure. So these guys here who put together this boat rental application, they worked as a team on that particular project.
Excellent. Where's the hosting being done for Dittofi?
What we do is we use something called Docker, which creates like a secure container for your application. So you can basically launch directly into those containers, and we use Amazon Web Services. So we have regions located, so you can have, let's say, servers in the US, you can have servers in Europe, you can have servers in the UK. So it's kind of, we use Amazon Web Services and we leverage that tech to be able to kind of like put your container where we need. That allows you then to put your data inside that container, and you can have it directly there. But actually, another point on that, because again, like we're one of these platforms which allows you to own your source code, or we're the only platform that allows you to own your source code. So what we allow here is that you can come underneath here in the application in the front end, and you can get your app code. So you can actually export your app code from the system. And when you export it from the system, you can take and you can host it any way you want to host it. So if you have particularly sensitive data, in the case maybe of the medical application, you can actually build your system on the platform, export the entire setup, and then take it and host it somewhere completely privately, where you have like full autonomy over everything. And that's just up to you then at that point how you manage it.
What's the yeah, okay, great. In terms of yeah, there's another one. So what happens to the code ownership when building with Dittofi? So is it 100% owned by the person who creates it?
Yes, so you build your application. We generate on the front end React code. On the back end, we generate Google Go. Google Go is, yeah, I think most of the top tech companies, Amazon, Facebook, and so on, are moving more towards Google Go because of the power it gives you. And yeah, you have two choices when you build with us. You can either build and leave it with us, and then we do all the hosting and everything for you. So I'm on a free tier package on this plan here. I think I have, here's my my colleague's one. So these are the pricing packages if you want to host with us. They scale according to the amount of resources that are required. So what we offer with the incubators that we work with at the moment is we have discount codes for the users. So you can come somewhere between $229 and probably $250. So you're probably looking at more like $100 a month for hosting. And what this method, the way it works is you can launch kind of like for free. As you see people start to use your platform, you're going to need more resources. So then you're going to move it up a tier, and then you can move it up a tier again, and then up a tier again. So that's the pricing if you host with us. If you export the code and you buy it, then you own it yourself. And it's again, like our pricing on that depends on who you are and how you came to the platform. So if you come through an incubator network where we have partnerships set up already, we charge $1,000 per month per app that you build. And with a maximum of 24 months. So let's say it takes you 1 month to build your app. The cost of exporting your source code would be $1,000. And the reason we price it like that is because with our system, you can literally build, let's say you can write maybe 50,000 lines of code in about, like a week or 2 week period. 50,000 lines of code, maybe written by like a very good developer, might otherwise take 5 months, 4 or 5 months to build the code on a day rate of like, substantially higher than that. So we bring that price down for you so that, at the point where you want to take that code and have it, that's you purchase it and then it's yours, you own it. It's 100% yours. You can do whatever you want with it, give it to another development team or leave it in the platform and keep, building more stuff on it. That's up to you.
Got it. Let's see. What's the difference between Bubble and Dittofi?
Sure. Yeah. So like, the other no-code platforms that are in the market, first of all, they don't allow you to own your source code, which means you're kind of pegged to that business forever. So let's say you were to build your app using one of those systems. And let's say, for example, that you ran into kind of like a missing feature that you needed. You're going to then be on their timelines in order to kind of get that feature input. So you'll have to literally, report a bug or report a feature request to their support desk. And you'll then have to wait until their support desk, or until their development team actually puts that feature in or fixes that bug for you, which means you're very much chained to that organization until they fix that problem. Now, that can be a big risk for your business because, you don't want to be on their timelines. You want to be on your timelines. Maybe this is more important for you than it is for them. So at that stage, we would allow you to say, take the code, hire a developer, add like, the 5 or 10 lines that are needed in order to get around that problem. And then you can just keep going. So we don't lock you down to our system. Neither in the code nor in the data. So we also allow full data exports. I know that there are some of those platforms out there which make that very difficult for you to get out of the system once you're in there. So we don't put any restrictions on that. So that's one side of it. Another side is that we're all we're a more kind of I guess developer focused platform. So we're really there for kind of like the professional user of the system, whether it's a professional like founder who really wants to build something high powered, or a professional software developer, or a professional designer. So we're a lot more kind of adding that level of professionalism to the platform. So simple things there. If I take, for example, if I wanted to build my page, let's take this workspace here. We use, for example, something called grids and rows on the front end. So we use specific component types. So where other platforms will use absolute positioning on the pages to make it really easy to like build your, drag a component on and then position it exactly where you want it. That creates a whole bunch of programming problems when it comes to scaling up your platform. We stick rigorously to the programming concepts, which we tried to make simple for everyone to understand. So in the case of being able to drag components, we use this thing called Flexbox, which allows you to, as a non-programmer, build high quality code in the background. So that's a second difference, is that we take care about the kind of the way we've structured the platform to give you like a really high powered system. And I guess the third difference as well is that there's really no limitation in terms of what you can build on our platform. So we allow, it's very much the way we've structured it, you're very much writing code, but through point and click. The other platforms on the market, they've kind of created libraries, like collections of kind of building blocks, and you can take those building blocks and put your application together. But with our system, we give you, it's just a lot more flexible. So you can basically write the code for your application, but without actually writing the code. So here, where I'm, centralizing these things, if I want to like shift this down the page, I'm giving you kind of like this concept of like margins and padding and so on. So these are all programming concepts, but we've made it in such a way that it's really easy to interact with it, rather than trying to, not use those concepts. So I don't know if that necessarily answers your questions, but those are the three, I guess, main things. And I've also written a blog article about it, which I put up on the website, which you guys can go in there and read as well and see what the differences are between the tools.
Excellent. With regards to the workshop itself, what sort of preparation would one need to have on hand? Do they need a product list? Do they need product pictures? And what are the potentials? I'll answer the second part. What are the scheduled dates of the workshop?
Okay, yeah, sure. So I would bring with you like wireframes as a minimum. So you want to, if you really want to build something within the period of time, I would sit down, think about how you want to structure your application. What are the pages you want to have? What are the workflows you want to have? And yeah, if you bring those designs with you to the session, you'll get a lot more out of it. So that would be the only thing I would say that you really need to bring. Other than that, I would make yourself familiar with the platform. So I would go to the learn sections that I showed you on the website, read through some of the material, try and build something. You might struggle, but that's okay, because you'll come then with questions to the sessions, which will make it a lot easier for you to understand. And the guy who's doing the training, Nelly Sugu, he trains. His background is that he trains adult learners primarily in the universities, places like NYU and so on, that want to learn actual full stack software development. So he's not just kind of like a no-coder who is teaching you no code. He really understands the programming principles behind it as well. So you have an opportunity to get a lot out of the sessions, not just necessarily learning about how no code works, but also learning a little bit about how programming is structured as well.
And in terms of the workshops, I guess we were thinking that it would be 5 weekends, right? It could be, and we've yet to kind of schedule it. Will depend on who the participants will be, but I think we were thinking probably like a Friday or a Saturday, which is obviously the Bangladeshi weekend, and we may start as early as the first weekend of August and go all the way through. So that's what we were thinking with regards to the timings. And you just saw that the sessions are around 2 hours each, and then obviously within the week we've got workshops. We've got homework, and both the Dittofi and band teams will be on hand to kind of support with those assignments, I suppose. And then let's see, there's another question around if somebody wanted to integrate this, right? If they were to launch an app on, using this platform, uh, how can they, how can they go about kind of putting this on the Play Store? How can they go about, for example, integrating with, say, payment platforms, right, in Bangladesh? How easy is that to do?
Yeah, so it's pretty straightforward. First of all, we build web apps in React and Redux frameworks. So putting it on things like Play Store, you wouldn't do that through the platform. You would need to export the code, and then you would need to set that up to convert the React code into mobile code. But you can launch everything that's web-based directly through the platform. So web apps are, like Najor mentioned before, for example, like crowdfunding platforms like Crowdcube and so on. That's all definitely possible. You can build that directly through the system. But if you wanted to make a mobile app, I would say that possibly this isn't the best. This you would need at some point to extract the code, and you need to set it up yourself. We have had people do that, but it's not something that we currently manage through the front end of the system. And the question on the payments and setting that up, that's all very straightforward. What I would request, though, in advance of the sessions, I know there's limited spaces for it, but if people provide in advance the payment systems that they want to connect to, that will allow our technical assistants to basically read the technical documentation of those and make sure that we have that stuff ready to go on the day. Because the most complicated bit about setting those things up is reading, the third-party documentation to know how it all works. So once our technical assistants have read through that, we can guide you through setting it up, and it's literally probably a matter of I don't know, maybe like half an hour to an hour to set each of those individual ones up. Once someone has read the documentation, so it's very quick to do.
Excellent. Another question was, how can you integrate this with Google Analytics?
Yes, you can. Yeah, so you can put there is really no limit on that sense. So you can copy in things like your custom tags. There's a section down here in the platform which is called templates, where you can basically come into and you can drop custom snippets of HTML and CSS in there. So you can just throw in things like your tag manager, Google Analytics, Facebook Pixel. Trying to think what other people have done. Min-max panel, that was done through here as well. So that just basically requires you going to Google Analytics, grabbing your tag, and then just copying it into this page here, and then it's good to go.
Got it. Another question. So what is the tech stack behind the platform itself, and what language would the source code be in?
Yeah, so we use React and Redux on the front end. So that's the Facebook framework, or the framework was developed for Facebook. And on the back end, we use Google Go. Google Go is becoming, the reason we picked Google Go is because my background and my brother's background is banking. So we built capital markets applications for people like the Toronto Stock Exchange, a bunch of stock exchanges around the world, plus a bunch of banks and brokers, hedge funds, and so on. And they always need very powerful systems because they have huge sums of data coming into it. So when we were looking at building those applications, we always use Google Go. Typically, a Google Go developer is difficult to find because it's a newer language, and also a much more high-powered language. So we thought, well, this is a good opportunity to give that power back to the users, so you can actually build really robust applications. So that's why we picked that as a language. The nice things about it as a language is the community around it's growing massively. Amazon have recently started training a whole bunch of people on Google Go because of the power in it. Facebook as well, and it's really that tech stack of React on the front end and Go on the back end is really forward thinking in that sense. So you get a very solid platform, very solid code base out of this system.
Excellent. I think those are all the questions that I received. If anybody wants to ask any specific questions, go ahead and unmute yourself or also type away.
Yeah, so maybe while that's happening and people are thinking, just as a quick example of kind of like how fast you can build. So I was going to just make a really quick little application here. and just show you how it's launched. But yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask while I'm doing this. But essentially what I'm doing here is I'm adding a bunch of components to the front end of the platform. So if I take here, I'm going to do 50 pixels on this or something like that, maybe 100. So I'm just resizing an image here on the thing. You can also resize by drag and dropping. I'm just using the pixel counters. But essentially the way the platform is structured is you have components on the left, and in the middle you've got this canvas where you can start to design your platform. So for example, here I can set radiuses, I can set like borders, I can add colors to those borders here. I can select my typography and change this. So if this was going to be like a social media posts, something like so, I can set that up. And then I can change things like my typography color all on the fly, like this. Now, if I wanted to integrate this is the front end bit of the system. So I might, for example, here, if I grab a background color, I'm not quite sure what colors I'm going to use for this right now. Maybe if I take something greenish like that, and I have this as kind of like my base. Maybe I want to maybe create a feed that's going to go under this, where people can start adding different items to it. What I can then do is I've got the front end kind of bit set up, ready to receive that information. So under here, I've got. So while I'm styling all of this, another thing I can do then is I can now start to display a feed down this section of the page. So the way this would work is you have the back end portion of your system, which is contained in these 3 tabs here. So this is the front end bit. It started building and designing. We could then go over here and we can set up a database. So without writing any computer code, you can press add table, and maybe I'm going to have a table here to show all my social media posts. So I can create that table by pressing the create button there. And then it's you have 2 views of the data. You can either have it in a tabular format, where you can start to add columns to that format. So here I'm going to have a list of all the posts that are being added into the system. And I could also view it in a more traditional kind of relationship structure over here on this side. And we'll go through what this means in the bootcamp, just as kind of like an overview here. And then I can add like an example post here, like so, and that would give me something in my database backend. Now we have at this point, what we'll have done is we've created a front end, and maybe now I want to display the list of posts down the page on the front end here. So I've got my database backend, and maybe I want to display this example posts over here on the front end of my system. So the way that works is you have to set up more of your backend. So there's several ways you can do this. You can either use all of the templated stuff, so you can just grab like a template to say like get a collection of records out of my database, password recovery, full authentication, a bunch of templated stuff, or you can actually design this stuff entirely custom. But for now, I'm just going to take a template, and I'm just going to install that template there. So this is going to retrieve this section here is going to retrieve a bunch of information out of my database, and it's going to send it back to the front end of my application over here. So that's essentially what I'm going to do. So now I need just very quickly to create a workflow on the front end, and you can kind of like roughly see, and I know I'm going very fast, but you can roughly see what I'm doing here is that I'm hitting some sort of hitting this endpoint, or what's called an endpoint, hitting some backend function. And that backend function is going to go and retrieve data out of my database. And then it's going to send that information back to my front end over here. So there's a whole bunch of concepts in here that you'll need to kind of like learn as you go through the platform. But basically, we've kind of set this up now to be able to receive that information. So now all I need to do, if I wanted to now display those records in the front end of my platform, is I would come over to this section here, and I would need to just set up some way to actually retrieve that data out. So I'm just going to drop this in quickly, but you can see here, I'm not writing any computer code. I'm just adding items to the page. And then I just need to set up a trigger here to say like when the page loads up, I'm going to run that workflow. So when my page loads up, I'm going to run a workflow which is going to display a bunch of posts down the page here. And of course, I can go through and style this kind of like as I want to. So I could, for example, add some margin or padding on that. And then if I come to this item here, I could maybe like add a background color to it to make it look a little bit more kind of social media-y. Or in fact, no, I don't want to do that color. I want to have a background on it. So here, background, and I can set the background maybe to white, like that. So yeah, now what I can do is I can come up and I can actually generate this computer code. So if I come up and generate the code here, what we'll see is we'll see when I launch this application, what I'll do is I'll take it and I'll throw it directly into AWS using the preview button up here. And we should, if I've set everything up correctly, which I hope I have, we'll see the information from our database then displayed down the screen over here. So yeah, this bar is running along the top. That's actually going out and writing the individual lines of code. And now I preview it, and you can see here we've got like our example posts set up here. So if I was to add, losing my pages, if I was to add more rows here, so we can take another one like an example post, so, and save that in here, and then we go back up here, we can refresh the page and we'll get that additional post there. So we could go through and we could style this and we could keep adding things to it. We could add, I don't know, I'm thinking kind of like on my feet here, but we could add maybe like a button or something at the top of it. So you can maybe like add like inputs for your users can maybe come in and add their own text inputs in here. So for example, here I'm going to add a button, and I think I'm seeing some more questions pop in now. So maybe we can take those while I'm doing this as well.
Yeah, the question was, are there any integrations with design tools like Figma, Sketch, or Adobe XD?
No, there are not, and there's a reason for that. The reason is because to try and create a mapping between Figma or Adobe XD and a platform like this has not yet been accomplished by anyone in a way that kind of makes sense. Because let's say, for example, you're drawing a button on Figma. How do we as a platform know that that's a button, and how do we know that it's not just like an image of a button or something like that? Or maybe it's just like an image by itself. So we wouldn't know exactly what the components were on a Figma design thing where you're just kind of like drawing things. So there's no way for us to convert that into kind of computer code on our side. So the other platforms that offer this, if you go out and try those services out, you'll find it's a little bit disappointing, because what you'll end up getting is you'll get kind of like all your things which look like they're positioned correctly, but nothing's functional. And then you'll have to go through and replace everything within the application in order to make it work. So that's basically the reason why. But Figma, Adobe XD, great places to start. Get your designs there, and then we can show you how to input those into the system. And it's very quick to do, as you can see here.
Excellent. Any other questions?
Hey, just wanted to come off of mute.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just to my last question. So let's say I do design maybe just a JPEG or a PNG, and maybe more of the things.
Sorry, I didn't catch the question. I don't know, Najor, did you get it? If it's my internet or?
No, it's, I think, yeah, said, I think you're cutting off a little bit. Could you try again?
Can you hear me okay?
Bit better. Yeah, go ahead and try again.
for the PNG or JPEG on this app?
So, sorry, we just heard something about PNG or JPEG on this app. Could you repeat, or maybe type it in if that might be easier? I trace over a PNG on Dittofi.
Not to trace over, but copy in you can. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure what you mean by trace over, but I guess what we would do is you would have, on one screen, you're going to have your original kind of like Figma, JPEG, PNG, Photoshop, whatever it is that you've built the kind of design in. And then we'll go through and we'll show you how to input it and pick the right components to bring it across. The thing is, like, the reason you can't do it automatically is because, again, there's like, this is kind of the structure of the page that we've built so far. So we've picked things like specific components like div blocks in order to hold things like our text input and our button elements. So if we were to take, and we're using kind of like our knowledge of what best practice is here, and that's really what we communicate to you guys in a boot camp, to show you how you can build a page which is going to be, responsive. It's going to work on all devices. It's going to be like high performance, and you're not going to run into any kind of like difficulties down the road with it. If we were to just take a JPEG or a PNG and we were to just automatically import it into the application, the system would need to somehow know how this structure would look. And that's kind of like not been achieved by anyone yet. And I don't even know if it really is accomplishable. We have actually tried to work with some guys, some data scientists, to try and figure out if there's a way to do this using AI. But as yet, that kind of the quality you would need it to be would still require you to understand a little bit about, okay, what's the right way to set this up within the page. But it's very achievable to learn what each of these individual components are within a 5 sessions period, and also by reading the docs and things like that. And it's not a big challenge to kind of move it from a design document into something like this. It's relatively straightforward to do. The more challenging thing I find is coming up with the ideas of what I want to build. Does that help in any way?
And feel free to follow up as well on this. But any other questions? I think we're done with questions for today. I think, no, this is good. This is really good. And we've already got people signing up. So, we'll follow up on that. James, if it's all right, we'll connect those folks with your team as well. Maybe we could do quick chats, maybe 10, 15-minute calls over the week, just to kind of get a sense of what they're trying to do and move forward.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, like I said, so Nelly unfortunately wasn't able to make it in the end this morning, but he'll be running the boot camps. Background is in educating adults on full stack software development and no code. So definitely someone you'll be in really good hands with. And then we have our technical analysts on our side. So all the TAs who'll be able to help walk you through the process, how to build your application within a massively reduced period of time. And yeah, the tech stack that we build is equivalent to the stuff that I've built for the last 10 years with my team, for banks, brokers, stock exchanges, kind of like across the world. So it's definitely a good opportunity to get something of very high quality built within a very short period of time and at a very affordable rate.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for doing this, especially on short notice. And thank you for joining as well. And yeah, hope to see you in the August workshop.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, James.
Bye-bye.